talent so that he among the truths may know the similar and contrary. The 16th chapter, called the description of the faculties and truths in the treatise on the development of understanding in the path of purification, composed for the purpose of gladdening good people. End pop _016. Note 1. In the Noble Path Moments initial stage, Vism-mhþ 519. Note 2. The words siþþha, prepared, sajjita, uppadita Vism-mhþ 520, and juþþha, fostered, sevita, Vism-mhþ 520, are not in Ped. The Pali is, indaliògaþþho indriyaþþho, indadesitaþþho indriyaþþho, indadiþþhaþho indriyaþþho, indasiþþhaþþho indriyaþþho, indajuþþhaþho indriyaþþho, cf. Bounty 5.2, Indriyam indraliògam indradüåþam indrasüåþam indrajuåþam indradattam itiva. Note 3. Anuvattapana, causing occurrence parallel to, not in Ped, not in CPD. Note 4. Aya, reason, not in Ped in this sense. Note 5. Caraka, prison, not in Ped in this sense, C14. Note 6. Signless, being secluded from the sign of the 5 aggregates, it is taken as having no graspable entity, aviggaha, Vism-mhþ 525. Note 7. Sickness is not included here, as at D2 305 for example, because no particular person is meant, and there are persons in whom sickness does not arise at all, like the Venerable Bakula, MN 124, otherwise it may be taken as already included by suffering itself, for in the ultimate sense sickness is bodily pain conditioned by disturbance of elements, Vism-mhþ 527. Note 8. The question, but why is it suffering, means this: granted firstly that birth in hell is painful, since hell is unalloyed pain, and that it is painful in the other unhappy destinies since it is originated by bad karma, but how is it so in the happy destinies since it is there originated by karma that leads to bliss? The answer, because it is the basis for many kinds of suffering, etc., shows that this birth is not called suffering. Because of having suffering as its individual essence, for there is no rebirth linking associated with painful feeling, but rather because it is the foundation for suffering, Vism-mhþ 528. Something must be said here about the words dukkha and sukha, the former being perhaps the hardest after dhamma to render into English. Dukkha is consistently rendered by either the vaguer general term suffering or by the more specific bodily pain. Different, but overlapping, ideas are expressed. The latter needs no explanation, but suffering must be stretched to include the general insecurity of the whole of experience, of the impermanent world. For this, uneasiness would certainly be preferable, ill is sometimes used, but multiplication of renderings is to be avoided as much as possible. Local accuracy is only too often gained at the cost of general disorientation in a work of this sort, with these very general words capable of sharp focusing. Again, sukha has been rendered as either bliss or pleasure, though the latter does not at all necessarily imply any hedonism construed with sensual pleasure, kama. Again, ease, in the sense of relief, is in many ways preferable for the first sense but has not been used for the reason already given. Note 9. Since also what does not have suffering as its individual essence is yet called suffering indirectly, consequently intrinsic suffering, dukkha dukkha, is said particularizing what does have suffering as its individual essence, just as in the case of particularizing concrete matter, rupa rupa, C14. Vism-mhþ 528. For these three kinds CS4 259. Note 10. CMN 13 and 129, though it is not clear where the figure 32 is taken from. Note 11. Pavana, stench, not in Ped, in this sense. The Sammahavanodini, b. reproducing this passage inserts the word asuci, impurity, lacking in ee and aeeds of Vism. Quoapa is only given the meaning of corpse or carcass in Ped, but Vism-mhþ says, various ordures, quoapa, such as bile, phlegm, pus, blood, excrement, gorge, and so on. Vism-mhþ 529. Whether the mother is 20, 30, or 40 years old, it is as exceptionally loathsome as an excrement bucket that has not been washed for a like number of years. Vism-mhþ 529. Note 12. E and A read uppadita, or adipade, papatanti, but vibite, B, reads chinape patai papatanti. The former reading is favored by Vism-mhþ. Note 13. Vibite, B, adds teledina, not in E and AE texts. Note 14. Anuthanana, brooding, not in ped equals antonijhayana, Vism-mhþ 532. Note 15. Just as a lion directs his strength against the man who shot the arrow at him, not against the arrow, so the Buddhas deal with the cause, not with the fruit. But just as dogs, when struck with a clod, snarl and bite the clod and do not attack the striker, so the sectarians who want to make suffering cease devote themselves to mutilating the body, not to causing cessation of defilements. Vism-mhþ 533. Note 16. On coming to that, Tyagama, on reaching that nibbana by making it the object, Vism-mhþ 533. Agama, ger of agakati, to come, is commonly used as an adverb in the sense of owing to, e.g. at mi 119. Here, however, it is taken literally by the commentaries and forms an essential part of the ontological proof of the positive existence of nibbana. The Samahavanodini, commentary on the Ayatanavibhoga Abhidhamabhajaniya, refutes the suggestion of a disputant, Vitadavadan, who asserts that nibbana is mere destruction, kayamata. The arguments used are merely supplementary to those in 69 here, and so are not quoted. The conclusion of the argument is worth noting, however, because of the emphasis on the words Tyagama. It is this, it is on coming to nibbana that greed, etc., are destroyed. It is the same nibbana that is called destruction of greed, destruction of hate, destruction of delusion. These are just three terms for nibbana. When this was said, he asked, "You say on coming to, agama, from where have you got this on coming to?" It is got from the suttas. Quote the sutta, "Thus ignorance and craving, on coming to that, are destroyed in that, are abolished in that, nor does anything anywhere." Ive aviggaha Tahasiya tai agamatamhi kioi tamhi bagi naca kinsi katasi. When this was said, the other was silent. The quotation has not been traced. Note 17. Nipapanka, non-diversification, is one of the synonyms for nibbana. The word papanksa is commonly used in the commentaries in the sense, a, of an impediment or obstacle, dhpai 18, and, b, as a delay, or diffuseness, 17. The sense in which the word is used in the suttas is that of diversifying and is best exemplified at mi 111, friends, due to I and to a visible object I consciousness arises. The coincidence of the three is contact. With contact as condition there is feeling. What a man feels that he perceives. What he perceives he thinks about. What he thinks about he diversifies, papansati. Owing to his having diversified, the evaluation of diversifying perceptions besets a man with respect to past, future, and present visible objects, and so on. This kind of papanksa is explained by the commentaries as due to craving, pride and views, MAI 25, 210, 275, etc., and it may be taken as the diversifying action, the choosing end. Rejecting, the approval and disapproval, MI 65, exercised by craving, etc., on the bare material supplied by perception and thought. Consequently, though it is bound up with craving, etc., a false emphasis is given in rendering papanksa in these contexts by obsession as is done in ped. Nipapanka as a term for nibbana emphasizes the absence of that. Note 18. This discussion falls under three headings. Questions 1 to 4 refute the assertion that nibbana is mythical and non-existent. Questions 5 to 7 refute the Assertion that nibbana is mere destruction, further argued in the Samahavanodini, Vibhite 51f, the remaining questions deal with the proof that only nibbana, and not the atom, etc., is permanent because uncreated. The Paramathamanjasa, Vism-mhþ, covers the subject at great length and reinforces the arguments given here with much syllogistic reasoning. However, only the following paragraph will be quoted here, which is reproduced in the commentaries to UD 80 and at 37. The last sentence marked appears only in the Udana commentary. Readings vary considerably. Now, in the ultimate sense, the existingness of the nibbana element has been demonstrated by the fully enlightened one, compassionate for the whole world, by many sutta passages such as Dhammas without condition, unformed Dhammas, cdhs 2, Bhikkhus, there is that base, sphere, where neither earth. UD 80, this state is very hard to see, that is to say, the stilling of all formations, the relinquishing of all substance of becoming, D 236, MI 167. Bhikkhus, I shall teach you the unformed and the way leading to the unformed, S 4 362, and so on, and in this sutta, Bhikkhus, there is an unborn. It 87, UD 80. So even if the wise trust completely in the dispensation and have no doubts, though they may not yet have had direct perception of it, nevertheless there are persons who come to understand through another's guidance, reading Paoini Yabudano, and the intention here is that this logical reasoning under the heading of deduction, nidharo, should be for the purpose of removing their doubts. Just as it is owing to full understanding, reading Yatha Paoini Yataya, that from the sense desires and from materiality, etc., reading Rupadanai, that have something beyond them, there is made known an escape from them that is their opposite and whose individual essence is devoid of them, so there must exist an escape that is the opposite of, and whose individual essence is devoid of, all formed dhammas, all of which have the aforesaid individual essence, reading Avatisabhavana. And it is this escape that is the unformed element. Besides, insight knowledge, which has formed dhammas as its object, and also conformity knowledge, abandon the defilements with the abandoning consisting in substitution of opposites, being unable to abandon them with the abandoning consisting in cutting off. Likewise, the kind of knowledge that has conventional truth, samyutta, that is, concepts as its object, in the first jhana, etc., abandons the defilements only with the abandoning consisting in suppression, not by cutting them off. So, because the kind of knowledge that has formed dhammas as its object and that which has conventional truth as its object are both incapable of abandoning defilements by cutting them off, there must consequently exist an object for the noble path knowledge that affects their abandonment by cutting them off, which object must be of a kind opposite to both. And it is this that is the unformed element. Likewise, the words, Bhikkhus, there is an unborn, an unbecome, an unmade, an unformed, and so on, which demonstrate the existingness of nibbana in the ultimate sense, are not misleading. Because they are spoken by the Blessed One, like the words, all formations are impermanent, all formations are painful, all dhammas, states, are not self, DHP 277-79, AI 286, etc. Likewise, in certain instances as regards scope, the word nibbana has the correct ultimate meaning for its scope precisely because of the existence of its use as a mere metaphor, like the word lion, CCH 15, note 12, for the word lion. Asterisk or alternatively, the unformed element exists in the ultimate sense also, because its individual essence is the opposite of, is free from, that of the other kind of element such as the earth element and feeling asterisk. Vism-mhþ 534-40. The Pali of the last two paragraphs is taken to read thus. Tatha athibhikhavajaytyabhutai akatayasayokatan tie the nibbanapadasa paramathatto athibhavajotakai vakanai ava paratathai bhagavata kathatata, yai bhagavata basatai tai ava paratathai yathatai sabsayokara anaxa sabsayokara dukkha sab dhamma anata ti. Tatha nibbanasado kathasai, pi, vas. Yathabhuta paramathavasayo upakaravadamata. sabhavito, pi, siþþha pi sahasado. Asterisk atha vatheva paramathato asayo kadadatuatare tapapari tavamata sabhavita siþþha pi padhavadatu. Vedana vati. Asterisk. The discussion is summarized and additional arguments are added in the Abhidhammavatara. The later Abhidhammavatthasayagaha appears to have shelved the problem. It may be noted that in the whole of this discussion, particularly in the answer to 4 Quetzales, no mention is made of the abandoning of the inherent tendencies, anasya, in the attainment of nibbana, e.g., MN 64, s. 266. 4 derivations of the word nibbana c. 8 and Note 72. Note 19. Right speech has as its individual essence the embracing of associated states through affectionateness because it is the opposite of false speech and the other kinds, which, being rough owing to their respective functions of deceiving, etc., do not embrace. Vism-mhþ 541. Note 20. Bodily work, Kayaka kriya, originates, sets up, whatever has to be done. And that originating, setting up, is itself a combining, so the abstinence called right action is said to have originating as its individual essence. Or it is the picking up of associated states which is the causing of them to be originated, on the part of bodily work, like the picking up of a burden, Vism-mhþ 541. Note 21. The purification of a living being or of associated states is cleansing, Vism-mhþ 541. Note 22. Vinadhunana, shaking off, not in ped, but see under dhunati, cf 2. Note 23. Those who hold that there is an overlord, omnipotent being, as reason say, an overlord, Isara, makes the world occur, prepares it, halts it, disposes of it. Those who hold that there is a basic principle as reason say, the world is manifested from out of a basic principle, padhana, and it is reabsorbed in that again. Those who hold the theory of time say, time it is that creates beings, disposes of this generation. Time watches over those who sleep, to outstrip time is hard indeed. Those who hold the theory of nature, sabhava, individual essence, say, the world appears and disappears, samhoti vibhoti ca, just because of its nature, individual essence, like the sharp nature, essence, of thorns, like the roundness of wood apples, kabiha equals Feronia elephantum, like the variedness of wild beasts, birds, snakes, and so on. The word, etc. refers to those who preach fatalism and say, the occurrence of the world is due to atoms. All is due to causes effected in the past. The world is determined, like drilled gems threaded on an unbroken string. There is no doing by a man, and to those who preach chance, it is by chance that they occur. By chance as well that they do not, pleasure and pain are due to chance, this generation lives by chance. And to those who preach liberation by chance, taking final release to be in the immaterial world like that of Ramudaka, Aara, CMN 26, etc., or in a world apex, world shrine, Lokathupika, like that of the Nijayohas, Jains. And by the word, etc. are included also the preachers of Nibbana here and now as the self-establishment in its own self when it has become dissociated from the qualities, Qoa, owing to the non-occurrence of the basic principle, Padhana, Skr Pradhana, see the Psyche system, and being in the same world as, in the presence of, or in union with, Brahma, Vism-mhþ 543. Note 24. The 36 modes of behavior of craving are the 3, craving for sense desires, for becoming and for non-becoming, in the cases of each one of the 12 internal-external bases, or they are those given in the Kadakavattha Vibhoga, Vibhite 391 and 396, leaving out the 3 periods of time, for with those they come to 108, Vism-mhþ 544. Thoughts of renunciation, etc., in the mundane moment they are the 3 separately, that is, non-greed, loving-kindness, and compassion, they are given as one at the path moment, owing to the cutting off of greed, ill will and cruelty. Vism-mhþ 544. Consciousness concentration, siddha samadhi, is the road to power consisting of purity of consciousness, they say. Vism-mhþ 544. Note 25. It may be noted in passing that the word anatta, not self, is never applied directly to nibbana in the suttas, and abhidhamma, or in Bhante Buddhaghosa's commentaries, cfchxxi, note 4, where Vism-mhþ is quoted explaining the scope of applicability of the three characteristics. The argument introduced here that, since atta, self, is a non-existent myth, therefore nibbana, the unformed Dhamma, the truth of cessation, is void of self. Adasuna, is taken up in the Saddhamapakasani, Hwaivitarn ce. p. 464. All dhammas, whether grouped together in 3 ways, 2 ways, or 1 way, are void, thus here in this dispensation. Do those who know voidness make their comment? How so? Firstly, all mundane dhammas are void of lastingness, beauty, pleasure, and self because they are destitute of lastingness, beauty, pleasure, and self. Path and fruition dhammas are void of lastingness, pleasure, and self, because they are destitute of lastingness, pleasure, and self. Nibbana dhammas, pl, are void of self because of the non-existence, abhava, of self. Secondly, formed dhammas, both mundane and supramundane, are all void of a permanent living being, sattva, because of the non-existence of such a living being of any sort whatever. The unformed Dhamma, sing, is void of formations because of the non-existence, abhava, or absence, of those formations too. Thirdly, all dhammas formed and unformed are void of self because of the non-existence of any person, pugala, called self, atta. Note 26. It is clung to, uppadiyati, by the kinds of clinging, uppadana, thus it is result of past clinging. Upadi, this is the pentad of aggregates as objects of clinging. Taking nibbana, which is the escape from that, as its stilling, its quieting, since there is remainder of it up till the last consciousness of the arahant, after which there is no remainder of it. The nibbana element is thus conventionally spoken of in 2 ways, as with result of past clinging left, sa upadi sesa, and without result of past clinging left, anupadi sesa. Vism-mhþ 547. End note pop_016.